Hi, I'm Gianluca Fiorelli, and welcome back to Western Session. Today, we are going to have a true expert as a guest. This person actually really dig and study all the things that are in the mouth of many, sometimes many without some precise knowledge. In fact, using all the exciting, as it was a poem, all the acronyms that she presents on her LinkedIn profile, she has a MSc, DIGM, PGDIP, DIGM. Well, in reality, in plain work, that means that she really studied and, and obtained masters about all the things information retrieval, digital marketing, and all the things that we discuss every day on social with our client and so on. International SEO consultant, managing director of Betty, una small consultancy, consultant agency, small agency, and she lives in Manchester and she loves to cruise the world. This person is Dawn Anderson.
Hi,
Hi, Dawn. How are you doing?
hi, I'm good, thank you. Thank you for the kind invitation, Gianluca. I really enjoyed watching some of the search session interviews, or not interviews, conversations before now, and I was really pleased when you invited me, so thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for your kind words. So let's start with therefore, that we always start the conversation with the already classic question: How SEO is treating you lately?
Oh, well, SEO is always wonderful. Even though it's died a million deaths, it never dies. And, whilst people are still searching, I believe there'll always be a place for SEO, and SEO is always interesting. We never have boring careers. It's just very fascinating. And I'm always so thankful that I stumbled across it 17 years ago and started in the world of SEO. So, SEO, I'm always grateful for it every day, enjoying it all the time. Even now, it's
Yeah.
still a turbulent learning period where we're all having to reevaluate everything and just dig in and get back on a very steep learning curve. Probably the steepest learning curve of all in the 17 years I've been in search is probably now that is the one where it's changed the most, even though we've had a lot of changes, but this is probably the biggest change and a bit of confusion all around. So, but it's interesting. Keeps us getting up every morning.
Yes, indeed. It's purely a steep learning curve. But I like the positive vision you have because sometimes also other guests in the past who presented answered with a more worried answer to the same question, more uncertain answer about the future and so on. So it's always nice to see someone like you that is presenting anyway, despite of all the difficulty, the steep curve for learning, all of the news in our sector, a positive attitude. And talking about the eruption of AI in search, you on social especially are quite vocal with your own style and tone of voice against the myth that very, very fast are growing and be spread about everything AI search. Two questions. What is the most ridiculous myth you have read about? And what is, you think, the danger of this myth?
Well, I think a lot of it comes from I'm fairly confident that people are not going out of their way to create myths as such. But there's a lot of confusion. We've already just touched on the fact that actually there is some very, very steep learning curves that we're all going through. I think it's not ridiculous. I see that people are trying to make a case for ways in which LLMs can consume content because obviously they have these challenges around things like JavaScript rendering. Not only certain LLMs actually are able to render as such. So I get that people want to find an alternative to robots.txt. So they're using this notion of LLMs.txt where they literally just mark down all the content and just pile it into a file. But I think they're not getting their head around the fact that robust.txt, for instance, is a standard. It's a protocol. It's behind it is the Internet Engineering Task Force. So finding introducing anything new is it kind of goes beyond just a few people in the AI and SEO world saying, "Hey, let's just launch a new protocol." So I think that that's one that being pushed, unfortunately, and it's being pushed by some of the tools as well, because it's very easy just to make an additional file and say, hey, here's some added value that you can say to your clients that you've created, like create them an LLMs.txt file and all the AI search engines and other the AI search interfaces will bring bring you up in mentions and so forth. So I think the LLMs.txt one is it's not ridiculous, but it's just a very cheap and easy way to like create a myth almost, that one. And interestingly, Mark Williams Cook, because he's quite a character, smart guy, but he created a file called cats.txt, which also started to get indexed and so he said, oh, I'm going to create a protocol for cats.txt. And, I've got a Pomeranian dog. Somebody else created one called pommies.txt. So I was like, well, I'll have this one then. So it's things like that where people are very enthusiastic for AI, which is good in a way. We're all having to learn. But at the same time, we're forgetting that actually a lot of these protocols and things that have gone before requests for consideration, the RFCs, the Internet Engineering Task Force, they take years to be accepted, some of these protocols. So I think it's going to be like more than just a few excitable SEOs that are going to be needed to get a new protocol for crawling as such. Yeah. So there's that one. And then obviously there's the whole like chunking one as well. I think again, people are confusing chunking, which is obviously breaking things up into small context window, tokenizing content, if you like, and defining where content should be separated and in what size of chunk. I think people again are getting that a bit confused with the likes of just doing strong semantically structured content with nice little sections that are very topically focused, like semantic structuring. So I think there's that. But again, as I said, not necessarily myths, but they are myths is an easy way to kind of classify them, but they're more, I think, just confusions. There's another one at the minute which just popped up, which is Google's BlockRank, which I think again people go off and there's always an academic paper behind a lot of the things that Google announce on their Google research section. So I think people go off and I don't think they fully read the papers, the academic papers, because they're not that easy to interpret, to be honest. They have lots of metrics for evaluation. Like if it's a regression stuff, they'll have lots of metrics around mean square error and R2 score or precision at X or, lots and lots of things. So unless you know what you're reading, it's very easy to just misinterpret it. I know that's a very long answer. So I hope that answers that.
No, it answered, obviously it answered everything very well. And when I use the word myth as reminding classic, evergreen myth in the SEO discipline, like classic, this is really a classic. It's like the Odysseys or the Iliad of myth in SEO, like keyword density, which was maybe in the very beginning of SEO something, but then it was so repeated that became something that now obviously not so many people still use the terminology. I think that even Yoast SEO quit keyword density from the tool. And so I was using maybe in that sense. So things that maybe are created as a step, something when you are learning, but then that are, let's say, classificating into something that you should do because we don't really know how things work. And so maybe there is no justification for doing them. So, for instance, the classic in the case of the LLMs TXT, People say, okay, maybe it's not at all needed, but we don't know. Some people says, and they say, I mean, it's not so difficult to create. So because I'm not sure if it's used or not used, let's create it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. And the thing is, I think there have been quite a few like studies now that show that in the main, like LLM bots just don't even bother with it, you know. So I think Chris Green did a study that where he had a lot of like LLMs.txt across a lot of sites and no bot went near it at all. So I think there's quite a few people now that have actually gone and done some testing with it. I don't like the fact that some tools have actually just put it into there as into the SEO suite as something like you could sell in as a service because I think it's important that we are credible and legitimate, constantly legitimate, because otherwise, if we start saying, "Oh, well, do this because LLMs need to like have an LLMs.txt file," and it's not true, or we don't know it to be true, then we become less credible. So that then when we do have something big that we want to recommend, that's also not seen as something that's needed. So yeah, I think we should always be authentic and we should always be credible and we should always just support everything that we're doing with either data or I know people don't always agree, but if Google said do it, then not necessarily you don't necessarily have to like run off a cliff if they said to do that, but at least there is some evidence to support what you're suggesting. If Google have literally said this part about webmaster guidelines, and they've not said anything like of the like with LLMs.txt. So really, it's just testing. But Black Hat SEO is also testing. So what are you gonna do? You know?
Yeah, yeah. And when you were talking about chunking, I agree also with you. It's like that many translated chunking into creating content composed simply by one paragraph and many point and on number at least.
I think that that kind of content eventually will get suppressed when core updates come because it's just so obvious that you're trying to do manipulative.
No, apart of it, it's not. It's also quite because yes, we think in terms of optimizing for
Yeah.
AI, but then that content must be read by someone who is
No,
not an AI, and it's let's be honest,
clickbait,
it's horrible
awful,
formatting.
awful, painful to read. You'd never read a book that had a paragraph with a section, with like a heading, but you just never read a book or anything that had like 2 sentences, 3 sentences. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't be a good experience for humans. I think it would be really easy to detect that there's over
And I
optimization going on.
yes, yes, and I think that people with this concept of chunking maybe would need simply to, when you click on AI overview, but even on a feature snippet, and you go to the page that has been linked, and Google usually has this anchor link to the piece that is being
Yeah.
used. And you can see that is sometimes is the chunk is comprehending more paragraph or part of one paragraph and part of a second
Yeah.
paragraph.
Because
So it,
they're able to extract it and then put it
yeah,
all together.
yes. So returning to what you were saying, is not the chunk is about and using, you know, an anthropic definition. It's really about a piece of content that is clearly monosemantic about the concept. So it's
Focus.
about yeah.
Yeah.
So it's more about clarity of what we are writing
Yeah. Yeah,
and not dispersion in what we are
exactly. But
writing.
for me, content should always have, like, clarity right from top to bottom. In any piece, it should have, like, a topical focus because otherwise it's just well, it's not relevant to anything, is it, when you just have, like, something that's just vaguely about this and vaguely about that, and I mean, to some extent, it kind of goes back to the whole, like, paragraph indexing era, which nobody really talks about anymore, but obviously will have had some kind of impact. So it's kind of very similar in that. Do you remember years ago when that first came out, paragraph indexing? and they were talking about how, well, you'd have a
You
section of cats.
are you meaning passage indexing?
Sorry, passage, yeah, passage index.
Okay,
Sorry,
yes.
yeah, passage indexing. Do you remember? I mean, I do believe that there was a interview that Martin Split did with Bartosz, I think, Bartosz Gorowitz, and he explained it and he said, look, you've got bloggers that don't really have any awareness of SEO and they don't necessarily structure things in such a way that's very focused. But passage indexing understands that that passage, that section, that paragraph was about cats and this paragraph was about dogs. So I think that's probably more relevant to both LLMs and search engines than this notion of chunking it from an SEO perspective anyway. So it really just comes back to having some sort of topical focus in all the writing that you do, which is just good for search, good for humans anyway.
Yeah, yeah, yes, totally,
Staying on
totally.
course, staying on course, organizing things well, making sure your library is organized and you don't end up with a bit of this and a bit of that all together. Just library science, isn't it? It's like an organized world.
Yeah. I have a curiosity. It's maybe even a silly curiosity. You don't bet you, let's say, use with one feet stay in the SEO world. So with so many people trying to investigate and maybe without a knowledge, the kind of knowledge that, for instance, you have. Then with another feet, you are in the academic world, let's say, let's call it so more broadly. I'm curious because not all people, but many in our industry reads patents or try to understand patents and many have also studies in, not me, for instance, I'm not coming from information technology, so I had to learn by myself, at least the principle of information retrieval, but many supposedly come from information technology, so they should know things like information retrieval. But in the academic world, the people that are always thinking about information retrieval and so on, what if they think about, say, SEO? What do they think about the SEO world?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I want to stress that I'm largely a consultant rather than an academic, even though I do
No,
love.
no, no. Yes, but I was joking to the
Yeah.
fact that
Yeah, no,
you.
it's fine. Yeah, I do. Yeah, yeah, no, you're right. I do love learning all about it. I think so many of us do in the SEO world, and we must learn every day. But one thing I would say is that I did a talk, funnily enough, in the summer. I went to the summer school for information retrieval. I've been there, been 3 times now, but I was there first in 2017 in Barcelona, and then I went last year in Amsterdam. This year, they asked me to do a talk about just the changes that are happening with generative information retrieval and so forth, and how SEOs were kind of adapting to it. And I did a talk that literally was entitled IR and SEO Frenemies Forever. So I think there's a friendly enemies relationship that goes on between us and the IR world. I think some of them are very suspicious of SEO, but I think the problem is a lot in that field don't differentiate between what is spam and what is SEO. Yeah, and I think even in SEOs, amongst SEOs and everybody else who's outside of SEO, maybe all the generic marketers, I think a lot of them don't differentiate either between what is good SEO, i.e., understanding people's search behavior, aligning a website with that, and building relationships and so forth to like promote a website so that it becomes more visible in search and so forth, building out topical relevance, that kind of thing, and spam, which is obviously taking some of these dodgy tactics or maybe just trying to manipulate things so much. So I think that there's a curiosity about us, SEOs from the IR world, I believe. But at the same time, I think there's just a big misunderstanding of what we actually do. So I think I'd say it's probably more of a they're not quite sure what we do. And I think sometimes we as an industry, as SEOs, we don't help our case with some of the things we talk about.
Yes, I think it's an original sin of us SEO that we
Well, it's because we've
just
got
in very few
so
cases but
yeah.
we usually went. or still are not able to explain correctly and in a way that everybody can understand, from the big academic to the lay
Yeah.
person,
Well,
what we actually do.
the definition of what we do is it's just it's very difficult to pin down, isn't it? Yeah, it's difficult to pin down. It's very easy to confuse what we do with spam sometimes. There's a low barrier to entry, which is in many ways a very, very good thing. People don't have to have qualifications to become an SEO. They can have a really interesting career and fulfilling career without any academic qualifications, which is a good thing. At the same time, that does mean that we end up without any real like standards and framework or formal side of things. So it's a bit of a wild west in some ways. And obviously, we've always got new people coming in. So it depends who they learned off and so forth. Yeah. So,
Yes, but I don't know if you agree with me, but maybe after 20 years
yeah,
minimum, if not more, of a system of SEO, maybe we should seriously start to think about. I'm not saying standardization in the very strict term as it was an
yeah,
ISO or something, but in setting up somehow clear definition
yeah,
that
yeah,
eventually open to evolve because our field is always evolving, but at least a clear definition that can be accepted by all the industry.
yeah. Well,
So
I suppose that's you make a very valid point there, Gianluca, because even I'm doing a module for my current masters at the minute, and it's around learning the field of learning analytics, i.e., studying using machine learning to predict like student scores using different regression models, one thing or another. And it's meant that I've had to go off and like learn a little bit about this field that's literally called learning analytics, which is the study of learning and students learning and so forth. So when you've gone and looked at that, it actually says in the early parts of my study that there's various definitions and that people have different interpretations of it. The problem is, I would say that a lot of us in SEO, we're busy like doing blog posts, but we don't ever really submit things to academia for proper peer reviewing. And there have been conversations in the past, myself included in that, all of us, not none of us literally like submits anything for proper peer reviewing. I wonder whether in the future we should do that. And we just don't do it at the minute. So yeah, I think those probably would be a good early start to that. And we have had those conversations in the past. I remember years ago when Alman and Bill Slawski used to have their discussions on a Tuesday or Monday night. Can't remember which one it was, but Bill was very much for the idea of people submitting things for peer review. And I think that would be a really good place to start. But we don't do that at the minute. I suppose the only type of peer review we have is when people submit to one of the news websites and the editors do the reviewing, but it's not done by a group of people who are very experienced in the industry. And that would probably be a good place to start. Then what would be the reward for doing it? You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know whether we're quite as accommodating as an industry as peer reviewers are in academia, because that's part of their job. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Maybe some of the like websites like Search Engine Journal and Search Engine Land could have a panel of peer reviewers. That would probably be quite a good thing to do.
you're totally right. But at the same time, I think, for instance, that all the geo-friendly and somehow promotion ultimately started with a paper submitted to Archie.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. But that paper's had about, last time I checked, and it is a while ago now, it only had 13 citations. When you compare that with a lot of the other papers out there, it's nothing. And some of them are SEOs as well. So it's just somebody saying, well, this is just, it's almost just an opinion. I get the whole debate. I've backed off from the debate around GEO, AEO, blah, 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 whatever you want to call it. Because for me, I'm always expecting change anyway. Hence why I'm always learning. Hence why I think we should all be always learning. So whilst it is a steep learning curve at the minute, I don't feel it justifies a new name as such. That said, there is this notion in the IR world of generative information retrieval, of which the birth of it was 2023, which kind of coincides with when people are talking about the geo thing. So, but they don't turn around and say the whole of IR's changed. They just say this is another aspect of it. And I think if we're gonna ever say, well, there's this thing called geo, we should say it's an aspect of search rather than all this SEO is dead stuff, which is clearly not. But I love it when people say SEO is dead because people stop doing SEO, and that just means that people like us will carry on, just surge ahead. So, we eat their lunch, and we've said it before with Penguin, with Panda, all these things where people went off or like, oh, I'm going to go off and be a this, that, and the other. And then eventually they'll come back because SEO is a great and very interesting career. So eventually they come back. But the likes of you and I just stuck with it and work through it. We're still here.
And I agree with you saying that GEO, AIO, LLMO are nothing are but a new layer, let's call it so, a new
It's a new surface,
vertical, if you want.
a new surface
Yeah,
is
a new surface is like when we have SEO as a general concept, and then we have SEO for news, SEO for local, SEO for AI search, SEO for
yeah,
we could even go into the micro category. So we even talk about SEO for e-commerce,
yeah.
SEO for
Yeah.
travel, SEO for
Yeah,
specific,
yeah,
specific vertical.
app store optimization, shopping channel, shopping feed
Yeah,
optimization. We go very granular. We could do. I think the thing that irks is that people are trying to claim that there's a whole new way of doing this, and I don't believe there is. All it is it's a combination of natural language processing and having to have the grounding from information retrieval. So it's two fields of the IR world, NLP and IR, having to come together. And maybe there is aspects as well of knowledge graphs and so forth. There's other reinforcing, sources of data and information. So really, it's all just IR, and search has always been just all of IR. And so nothing really has changed other than all of these things are also moving forward as individual fields, but they're moving forward together as well now. For me, it's a very exciting time. Nobody in the IR field is talking about IR being dead. They're talking about the fact that there's many challenges still to deal with. Information retrieval is search is hard. Search is a hard problem to solve. You know, it's a long way from being solved.
yeah, yeah. Personally, I have maybe it's my own because of my background. I have my own way to try to understand is to try to go back even to the super basic source of inspiration that engineers may have in order to how to make machine try to think within brackets as the humans do. And when it comes to natural language processing, for instance, I go back to my root studies about human linguistics. So knowing that maybe from there you can then try to infer what they are trying to do. And it is also quite interesting because in my case, but I didn't do technical studies, formal technical study in information retrieval studies, it's helping me to understand what, in technical words, the patterns are trying to say. And obviously, I always go to people who know these things better than me and ask if I'm not having misunderstanding something or everything. But I think that if you are not sure, go to the basic in this sense, which is can be what is semantics and what is semiotics? Semiotics was invented in the 40s and 50s. And linguistic is a very old humanistic
Yeah,
science. So,
exactly. And none of that has changed. None of that has changed. The foundations still remain. There's a lot more automation with it, of course. That's the only difference. There's more automation. There's more probability determinations. There's more use of automations of statistics and stuff. Being able to predict things much more easily, and measure the predictions using things like, I don't know, scikit-learn and so forth, and all these different machine learning programs. But the bottom line is still it's about people searching, human language, people having information needs, and search engines and now LLM to some extent providing humans with a way of accessing information and completing tasks, and that's the bottom line. There's always going to be a need for people for that to be studied, for people to be, people are still going to do things silly like block robots.txt, or they're still going to no index whole sections of websites accidentally, or they're still going to index their internal search results, or they're still going to not have a clue and just create spam inadvertently. So there's always going to be a role for people to guide website owners and businesses through these challenges.
Yeah, it's totally true. Because at the end, I mean, even if it's AI, especially when AI is grounding or going RAG, they need to find in a place which is the search index. So if you have to be in the search index, you still have to make your website crawlable, index passable, indexable.
Yeah.
And then obviously, even if it's
and the content still has to be good quality, and you still have to be trusted.
yes, and that's the definition of good quality, especially what does it mean? Good quality in Google terms is not how well you write, but how well you target the intent and how well you are able to provide a beneficial, to satisfy the beneficial purpose that the intent is implying. That's the quality. And that's why sometimes pages that are sincerely a crime in terms of graphics or in terms of how things are written or what could be called formal quality work so well.
Yeah.
Because they are.
Yeah, because they have the structure. They're like they're like a library. That's it. And that's what it comes back to some extent.
And talking about the structure, and I know this is a classic polemic lately. I think a polemic that many times is based on, for me, on the incorrect focus that is taken, is discussed, which is the importance of structured data. Because from one side, we say, being saying structured data, use it. We need it also for AI search. And just last week, last week, Google itself claiming, and there was a report also on Search Roundtable, that use structured data because AI search needs structured data. But then there is all this polemic that is coming out of structured data is not a ranking factor. It is not a ranking factor. LLMs cannot even read it, and so on. What is your position?
Well, it's a funny one because for me, it's a funny one because I feel that in grounding, to some extent, I feel that even though structured data has never been a ranking factor as such, we know that it's never been a ranking, but it's a clarification factor, it's a disambiguation factor, etc. So for me, I think if search results have been disambiguated so that something is seen as more precise because there's more understanding of what the content means, that actually then will in turn benefit what gets fetched by the grounding, because ranking more highly, there is a correlation between being included from the grounded result. So it's like a secondary effect in my mind. It's like if you can disambiguate, then you'll rank probably better as a result of more precision to topic. And then as a result of that, you're probably more likely to be fetched as part of grounding. So I think that there is a positive impact, even though others have said, well, they can't see it. It's not the LLM that needs to see it. I think it's still Google that needs to see it. And then it comes through as a secondary part of grounding, sorry.
Yes, that is exactly what I also think. I mean, it's in structural data. Apart from that, sometimes I like to use the structured data as they were a sort of script to give. Okay, let's say this is a classic example. Already did it a couple of times in the sales session. And let's say we have to write a biography page for one of the stakeholder of a company. Instead of telling to the copywriter, okay, go to LinkedIn and try to reformulate what he wrote. I go to the profile to person schema and I see what are the things that are included in the schema as a property. And let's try to give this information to the copywriter and obviously try to write the biography of this person around these properties that are associated to a person. Then obviously it depends also if the person that we are writing the biography of is giving you information or not. But I usually try to use this kind of thing, even if then maybe the structured data is not implemented so granular with such a granularity as is indicated by schema.org. But I know that there is that information that we are structured in a way that search engines can parse better than without structure.
I mean, obviously, we know that the likes of schema has been around a really long, long time, and there's kind of more. There's more value just around the disambiguation than anything else. So for me, there's definitely an argument to still include it ultimately. And even if we just say, well, not everything's going to be about AI search for a very long time to come. Why are you still getting to Google search results because of the schema that you added? There's still going to be a lot of value there. In fact, interestingly enough, somebody did a study, I think, the other day that said that actually AI overviews, for instance, are dropping down the page. So indicating in some instances that they're less valuable than Google had perceived them to be initially. So in that instance, that use of schema may allow for you to be in featured snippets or other site features, other search features. So I say include it if you can, but it's very difficult because obviously we know full well that there's usually only limited resources within any organization. So if you had a choice between dealing with some other critical technical SEO issue or adding schema, then it's a little bit of a nice to have, really, isn't it? That's the challenge.
Yes, but this is something that I also suggest. I mean, when I audit and prepare, let's say, a plan for a client of implementing action for optimizing a website, usually let's go first to optimize the things that really matter first, that really make the cut, let's say. For instance, if you have a tremendous number of canonicalized pages because you don't want to use no index because you have feeling that no index is passing through the value of a no index passing through the internal linking and blah blah blah. So you have millions of pages canonicalized, and then you go to Search Console. Let's say Google choose another canonical than the one indicated by the user. First, go correct this kind of mistake that are evident in the Search Console, and then go with other things like, in this case, we were talking about schemas, structured data. And then another thing is could be core web vitals. I mean, don't stress you out like a crazy because you are in Orange and you want to go to green in for every pages of your website.
Exactly. It's very, you have to prioritize things. You have to. That's the challenge. You can't, nothing's ever going to be perfect. I think I've never ever looked in Search Console and seen a website that's got no issues whatsoever. So, in all the years now, so nothing will ever be totally perfect. It's simple as that. So, yeah, there's always going to be a battle for privacy, isn't there?
Yeah, totally. Now, talking about AI as a tool, how do you use AI eventually if you use it in your daily work?
Yeah, yeah. Mostly I use it for ideation now, to be honest. I don't ever like take something and copy and paste it from AI at the minute. I don't feel it's up to the mark on that. And also I feel that, to be honest, I feel that to some extent, a large extent, the human value add is really, really key. But I do use it for ideation. I use it for start at the 10 stuff, like, give me some like ideas for this or build like a plan for this or whatever. And I use it a lot for in my studies as well, and potentially in some of the stuff that's whenever I'm doing things with code, with Python, I've started to say to it, explain to me this code. So it explains to me, all, for instance, variables or what's happening in a piece of code. So it fully explains like the machine learning side of it. I'm doing a lot of it with that as well. What else? Yeah, I'm picking up on a lot of other people's scripts that are out there. I've looked at some of the stuff that Leaffoot does, obviously some of the stuff that Elias Dabas does. So yeah, so I suppose they're all different aspects of machine learning if you include Python. So yeah,
Yes, and just as a reminder now that Google is pushing Gemini practically in every even more remote corner of its applications. Now with the explore function of Chrome, you can debug or simply enter asking
yeah,
things to web developer tool using Gemini when you're
yeah. It will
visiting.
auto suggest loads of stuff. It's brilliant. Yeah. The auto suggestion aspects now are really good. I use Google Colab for Python stuff for the machine learning things. And that, if I'm like defining like all the different libraries that I need to use, it'll actually suggest libraries that go together, for instance. So I just have to tab along, and so it does quite a bit of the work for you. So yeah, so that's good as well. Yeah, it's very, I mean, AI is brilliant for assisting, and I think that's the thing. I think we need it for the start for 10, as long as we don't forget how to learn and forget that it's there to help us be more efficient rather than take over as such. Yeah. We don't want it to take over the learning.
And talking about how do you are seeing maybe in the metrics of your client the impact of AI in the way people are searching.
Obviously, there's kind of a whole meme that goes around about people in any kind of senior leadership is interested in AI, and nobody wants to get left behind. So I think Sierra Interactive did a really, really good, very simple but very effective Looker Studio report where he actually just pulls in like three pie charts that show the impact of AI search, i.e., it pulls it in from analytics, it shows the impacts of AI search traffic, shows the current impacts of organic search traffic, and it shows the impacts of organic social. So you can literally see at an immediate glance the overwhelming amount of organic search traffic compared with the AI search traffic. So I think it's about quantifying it, being totally transparent, not trying to like hide anything, and just getting like using this time to like define measurement around what success looks like with AI search. Because obviously it is changing. There are to some extent the whole like zero click things. Although I still believe there's absolutely millions of clicks out there. You just have to like think a bit more broadly, take different approaches. But still I get that people are like, well, Google's keeping all the traffic and so forth. So I think we have to like be better with measurement across both organic search and AI search, and to some extent organic social as well. So yeah.
And a question that is popping in my mind regarding this. Maybe one of the biggest misunderstanding and maybe one of the less considered because maybe it's an old concept, not so fancy. But what if zero click, which obviously exists. There are tons of searches that are zero click. I mean, the ones with an instant answer that immediately satisfy the need of information. The age of Barack Obama. I mean,
Yeah.
if Google is answering immediately, I don't need to click. But in general, it's not that zero click sometimes incorrect in the sense that it's not that searches are disappearing, but the search session that is generating a click that is expanding.
Yeah,
So,
it's such it's a query refinement. It's literally like people somebody lands, they say dresses. So Google doesn't know what somebody means by that. Like, well, you could just send it somebody to a dresses site, but actually they do a bit of clicking around, and Google realizes, oh, actually this person's looking for like black dress with lace, short sleeves, etc. Then works it out, does the query refinement on the actual search results, send somebody directly to a page that's black lace dress with short sleeves. So much nearer to a conversion. So I think that there's been an awful lot of like, oh well, if Google doesn't immediately send people hot from the first click out to the open web, then that's zero click. I don't think it is. I think it's query refinement, really, a lot of it. And I think there's a
Yeah,
bit
yeah, yeah,
of confusion there
yeah.
right now.
That's why I personally like a lot Google substantially suggesting us, thanks to all this query refinement, what could be the potential search journeys of the
Yeah.
people, which is for me very real keyword research.
Well,
And
you could argue that they're actually doing the work for us. They're kind of doing a little bit of like asking people what they really mean by the query because s- queries are very ambiguous in most cases.
totally, totally. And just a last question about the evolution. I mean, I think that everything we are seeing right now, for instance, on Google is a sort of big beta of what eventually it will become.
Mm,
So,
of course, yeah. Yeah.
but one of the new things, also because it's quite pushed by also the LLMs and maybe in future also by Google for AI mode and maybe the checkout, instant checkout on Google search is maybe getting closer to this. What is your opinion about agentic search?
Oh, I think. Well, I mean, again, I think it's going to be a big part of search overall. I think it would just be another aspect. I'm not sure. I think it's a way off. I think people to trust an agent to go off and like book tickets or book a restaurant or etc. I just think it's a way off. I think it'll probably need a bit more work. I don't think websites are largely prepared for agentic search yet. I think it'll be another aspect that we'll have to be mindful of. And I think also getting the measurement. I think there'll be an aspect of Google and so the search engines having to get the measurement right so that the data doesn't end up being completely skewed by bots all over the place. So there'll be that. So I think there'll be some challenges, but I think it's just something that we're just going to have to accept is coming. And that again, more adaptation on our side and seeing it more as an opportunity rather than a threat.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Everything's an opportunity. Everything's an opportunity.
Yeah, and always try to see the glass.
Glass half full. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And bear in mind as well how many things that search engines have tried to implement and then they've just decided that, oh, well, that's always a rubbish idea. Like the Google graveyard products, etc.
Yeah, yeah,
And we
yes.
also have to bear in mind as well that even though search is a massive, massive, massive part of search engines, there are now other product offerings of theirs which are massively profitable, like cloud computing, for instance. You know, that's huge. That's huge. That's an absolutely huge part of Google's offering, the cloud storage
Yes,
side.
it's
Um,
one of the contributors to the very good earnings of this
exactly,
quarter.
massive. Yeah, exactly. Same with Microsoft with the whole Azure network or the Azure platform rather. So I think search is massive, but I think we forget that Google's also got other fish to fry as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, almost 1 hour. So let's stop talking about AI, information retrieval, search engines, and so on. Let's talk about you. As I was hinting in my introduction, you really like to. There is a specific type, subcategory of travel that you really like, which is cruising. One, why you like it so much? Two, what is the cruise that still stand as the best one you lived?
Well, what do I like about it? I like being in different places every day and being able to like just go and take a snapshot of somewhere really, and then deciding later if you want to go back there in the future. So just having like that varied vacation, if you like. I'm not really one for just staying in one place. I find it gets a bit monotonous. So there's that. Obviously, I love lying on the deck of the cruise liner and listening to the band playing and with a cocktail in my hand. So there's that as well. And obviously, I like wearing the nice outfits. Yeah, I don't know. I've been on a lot of cruises over the years, and not so much just recently because we've had like struggles getting somebody to look after our dogs. There were two Pomeranians, but I've been on a lot of really nice ones, and I always like the Caribbean ones. So we went from Florida many years ago, and that was great. I really like the Caribbean ones. We're considering going on one next year. It's going to go from the UK actually, and because my hubby is not a huge fan of flying, so that will go to Northern Europe, Denmark, Amsterdam, Belgium, which doesn't sound that exciting, but as long as we get the weather, I think it'd be nice to like go around that side for a change.
Mm, mm, mm.
So yeah,
Have you
Norway.
ever thought about the river cruise?
I have, but and if I did go on one, I'd like to do one in Germany. When I went to Bonn years ago, I went to Sistrix's offices, and that was in Bonn, and that is an absolutely lovely place. But the hotel we stayed at, it was on the Rhine, and there was river cruises going backwards and forwards up there, the Viking
Mhm.
river cruises. So if I did that, I have thought about it, but the challenge is there's so many places you could possibly go, isn't there?
Yeah.
We're actually also considering going to Sorrento next year, maybe in Italy. So friends of ours have been there, and supposedly it's very nice. So there's there, and just yeah, just deciding, isn't it? So
And then there is another side of you, which is the Don Anderson really running
I know
during the
running a lot.
year,
Yeah,
hundreds of kilometers.
yeah,
How did this
yeah,
passion for running
yeah. Well,
came with you?
yeah. So that came because actually that came along during COVID because obviously everybody was like busy baking like banana bread and whatnot, and like everybody else, I put a few pounds on. So I decided I was gonna like do the Couch to 5K program, which is the UK's NHS app for getting fit and going from like not doing any running whatsoever, working your way up over 9 weeks to running 5K. So I
Hmm.
did that and found it was really good, really up structured running program because I couldn't literally like run around the block to start with. So did the 5K, and as it got to the end, it said what you should do next is find a running club. So I found my local running club, and that was nearly 4 years ago now. So that's the Harriers, my Middleton Harriers. So I run with them like 3 or 4 times a week, and then I do park run on a Saturday. I'm on my 160 odd part run, I think 160 odd, yeah, I think it is. So yeah, and I did a half marathon on Sunday. So and I'm doing a 10 miler on Sunday, a 10-mile race. But I have
And
to
there
do it
you,
because
one
I
day
was
you have
very,
to
very
come a
sedentary.
year. Yeah, 1 year you have to come here to Valencia for the half marathon.
Yeah. Well, that'd be nice. Yeah, lovely. Yeah. Well, I'm going to Benidorm. I'm doing the Benidorm half in
Oh, okay.
next month. I did it last year and it was great. Yeah. So I'm doing that one again next month. Yeah. With my friends for the running club. So yeah, I love it. And thing is, I have to do it because our work, as we know, is very sedentary. So,
Hmm.
we
Right.
know, we're like, once we start like analyzing some, a crawl, we're like, we don't move.
Well, you cannot really analyze it when you are running.
That
Oh,
is true. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So we need to have balance, don't we?
totally.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Donna. It was really a big pleasure to have you at
And
this
like, yeah,
session.
thank you for again for the invitation. It's very kind. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. Been good. I've enjoyed the chat. Thank you, Gianluca.
You're welcome. Let's promise to have a new chat in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you to all of you for being here, till now, listening us, and especially Dawn, talking about what's happening in the world of SEO. Remember to ring on the bell to be notified about new episodes. And if you want to help us, subscribe to the channel to make it grow. Thank you, and bye bye.